Alright everyone, it's time for a mildly concerning story. Of course, 2.5 tons of uranium have just gone missing in Libya. It could be that they managed to recover it, maybe it was just misstored, they put it in the wrong cavern or something like that. It's possible. We're hoping that it gets recovered in part or in whole. 2.5 tons of uranium going missing there. This is not enough to make a nuke, but it is enough to make a radiological weapon. Terrorist networks, which are very common in Libya, would like that material. And of course, state and non-state actors in other countries would like that material too. Iran might enjoy it. North Korea might enjoy it. Hell, some Western countries would enjoy getting that on the sly as well, just to make a couple of experimental devices that they can blame on some network so that they can start a war perhaps. Russia would like to buy it. Uranium's in demand. You can use it to power a city. Or you can use it to turn the city to ashes, or leave behind a 50-foot wide smoldering crater filled with radiological particles, which is more likely what you would do with this amount of particular radioactive material. Link in the description. Archived, of course, to this story. This is concerning. And it's against a backdrop which should worry you slightly. Let's take a look at Afghanistan, because there is a huge amount of comparison to be made there. The government of Afghanistan never really controlled the country of Afghanistan. It controlled Kabul and a few other regions, mainly the urban centers. Much of the hinterlands of Afghanistan, it never really made an attempt to control because it's been run for thousands of years by tribal warlords. And then, of course, you had the Taliban. Taliban had its own territories and also interspersed around those tribal areas and operated within cities with some capacity, sort of melted into the background. You have exactly the same situation in Libya. When we say the Libyan government, it's almost a misnomer. They control less than half of the country in any meaningful sense. They control a few urban centers. Tribal warlords, I think there are 5 in total, control much of the country. And then you also have ISIS, although they've been depleted some. You have Al-Qaeda networks there. You certainly have Boko Haram influence, and other groups, Islamic Jihad, other various guerrilla movements, militants, etc., criminal syndicates. Basically, whatever stability was there under Gaddafi, and at least if you were in a more developed area, there was some semblance of stability for the most part. There was an attempt made. There was development. Gaddafi, not a great guy. I think preferable to what came after. I think that the average Libyan would probably agree with that assessment. The government there is similarly fragile, and despite the fact that the West put that current government in power, we don't even necessarily recognize their full validity because they keep skipping the election that they're supposed to have. The original incepted government was supposed to hold an election several fucking years ago. Well, it never happened. You see, the West isn't going to unseat its own government, destabilizing things further when at the very least it can control several of the major ports through its proxy, through the pawn government that's there. It's only a matter of time, by the way, before it collapses. Again, think what you will about Gaddafi, better than the alternative. The problem is that when uranium goes missing in such a situation, we have no way of telling who took it. Now, of course, again, it could have just been misplaced by people that said, I can't remember which barrel the glowing rocks are in, and I'm certainly not opening them to find out. We'll just stash this in a cave somewhere away from our operation. It's possible. It's more likely this material's already been sold and carted off somewhere else. Was it a tribal warlord who wanted to trade it, for slaves or something? There's a lot of that in Libya. Thank you, Hillary Clinton. You did such a wonderful job there with what went on. Or maybe ISIS got a hold of it? They would love to. If they have the money to buy a bunch of uranium, make a couple of radiological weapons, all you need is a standard explosive and very crudely refined uranium ore, and you can create a denial of area basically in any city in the world if you can get the explosive there. It wouldn't even be difficult. It's well within the means of most non-state actors with any significant organization, and certainly well within the means of even the most third world nations. Haiti could build a bunch of radiological weapons if they could get the materials. Of course, they'd have to have money to do it first. Imagine North Korea. They've dabbled with radiological weapons. Russia and the U.S. have both dabbled with them. The British famously conducting a nuclear test back in the 60s or 70s, something like that, in Africa, using cobalt, radiological cobalt, to try to create effectively a nuclear weapon that would mainly salt the earth for miles around. it didn't work so well. That's probably for the best that they discontinued that particular program. It's way worse than just a standard nuke where most of the radiological material is burning off as gamma rays mainly, leaving behind, well, a city that's been turned to ash, but the radiation level more or less goes back down over time. Of course, we've tested thousands of nuclear weapons on this planet over the last decades and up until the 90s basically, and in that 50-year span of testing we didn't salt the whole Earth. Background radiation levels are slightly higher than they were in the 1940s, but only slightly higher, which again, we should be thankful we didn't accidentally develop a doomsday weapon or something. And they were worried with the first atomic test, Trinity. They were worried that we might ignite the atmosphere and burn the whole world, so keep in mind that they actually went through with the test anyway, despite some scientists thinking that was physically possible. Thankfully it's not. This is, in my opinion, most likely a case where the group associated with mining the material was paid like 10 times the value for it by some dude in a black suit with sunglasses. And we don't know exactly what government or non-state actor he works for. Could be a criminal syndicate. Some mafioso style group with billions of dollars in assets all over the world decides that it wants to really fuck the competition. Or maybe false flag someone. Maybe a state actor wants to do that. Maybe a sub-state actor wants a couple of radiological weapons to deploy against some group that it doesn't like. So all of these things are possible, so it's really a game of waiting at this point. We'll see. First, we have to wait and see whether they can recover the material. Even odds says they can't. Secondly, then we wait to see what's done with it. It could be put in a reactor in Iran, I suppose. That would be probably it's terrible to say, but the best outcome is that some state actor just wanted to undercut the market on uranium and acquire a little on the side in order to make some nuclear fuel. Not sure that 2.5 tons of this fairly crude ore would be sufficient to do much with. Again, unless you're going to semi-process it and make a radiological weapon. So don't be surprised if in the next couple of years the world has its first major radiological terrorist incident. They'll probably trace it back here, and then whoever's responsible, somebody else will probably get the blame for political reasons. You notice that this is a common theme too. The overlap between Libya today and Afghanistan right before it fell is already bad enough, because if that government falls and let's say an Eastern pawn comes in or a tribal warlord asserts hegemony, then this uranium might be discovered in a warehouse and it might not even go to the intended party. That brings a whole nother level of goddamn confusion. That's about all. Peace out.